Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot. Well, the clock in the kitchen I was looking at as I was chatting with my family is 5 minutes behind. So at just before 6:50, I was like, all right, I'm going to go start the meeting now. And then I sat down and saw it was 6:56. I was like, uh-oh. So, sorry about that.
I think we're good. Hi, Mary.
All right. I'm letting in, you want me to let in the Rockville City people now too?
Sure.
I just checked. We had 32 people registered as of a few minutes ago.
Wow.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, Jake.
Hello, how are you doing?
Mars, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I like your glasses. That looks cool.
Thank you. Been enjoying them. And hello, Lieutenant Crawford.
Hello, good evening.
We'll get started in a few minutes here. I see Max there. So we'll have we'll start with Lieutenant Crawford with a fairly brief overview of the public safety report, and then we'll get on to the discussion with do you see Christopher Meyers on from the city of Rockville?
No, not yet. We have two, Jonathan Goldsmith and June Nichols, in the waiting room. Do you want me to just admit everybody right as they come in now?
Yeah.
You want to wait
sure.
till 7? Okay.
And then hi, Jim Woods.
It's 6:59. I feel like it's basically 7.
Yes, yeah. Got a lot of ground to cover.
I
Welcome.
have to say good evening to Marissa, my friend.
Hello, FM, my friend. I have so many friends on here. I got Lieutenant Crawford friend on here.
Wonderful that we can gather. Welcome,
Indeed.
everyone. Just give everybody a minute to get in here. I see Lou Callis on my screen. Hey, Lou. Let me see. How can I? Are you still letting people in, Mike, or?
Yep, as they join, I'm letting them in. So
All right.
we have 14 people in.
All right. See a lot of familiar faces. I see a lot of folks that I've had
Sorry.
reporting. Okay. Welcome again, everyone. We haven't met in a while as a community, so it's good to be back, and I hope everybody had a good summer. We've had a number of issues emerge over the last few months, and so provided a nice impetus for the meeting tonight, and we have on the agenda the give some feedback from the community on the 2040 comprehensive plan, which the city is starting to look at what can be done sooner rather than later. So we'll have a discussion on some of those action items later, and we'll also have an update on the status of the pedestrian crossing from Jib Woods from the Department of Public Works. And we'll also talk a little bit about some of what we would like to see for capital improvement requests in next year's, the 2024 budget. So those are the highlights. But before we go into those items, let's begin with welcoming Lieutenant Andy Crawford from the Rockville City Police Department. And it's our habit at TCA meetings to have an update on the public safety issues. It's always a concern for neighbors, and so Lieutenant Crawford, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. I apologize. I do not have the monthly report like I thought Major England would have sent that to you. I was just asked to answer any questions concerning the call on Fisher's Lane on the 28th, reference to carjacking.
Yeah, why don't you, we didn't advertise
Right.
we didn't send out a lot of information. There really wasn't much information about it, but I do think there's probably a little bit more awareness now. So if there, you can share a little bit what you have on that.
Sure, I'll give you a quick overview. So apparently on August the 28th, I think it was 11:33 p.m., but let me just double check that. Yeah, 11:33 p.m. 720 Fisher's Lane. With the windows down, talking on his cell phone. He was approached by two subjects. One of them pointed a black handgun at him, demanded that he hang up the phone and give the phone and the passcode or the passcode to the suspects. He was then in a little bit of an altercation with them, and then they had him exit the car, and they took the car and the cell phone. So the phone had Find My iPhone or something similar, was tracked to Minnesota Avenue Southeast and White Place in Washington. Lookout was given to the Metropolitan Police Department. On 8:30, August 30th, DC found the car in 3700 block of D Street Southeast. There was no damage. Both tags were attached. No arrests were made. The car was found unoccupied. And Montgomery County Police Robbery Unit is still investigating that.
And so this was around the Toronto apartments. Is that
Correct.
this place it for one?
It's down there at Fisher's Lane and Higgins Place, that area, right by the Twinbrook Metro. So that's about all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Questions? I don't know. Maybe Marissa, if we want to share a little bit about what we've been doing regarding under the realm of public safety, and in terms of bringing to light some of the issues around the bike path and the work that you've been doing with the police department on raising awareness around those issues.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm happy to. There's definitely two components of public safety that we are dealing with in Twinbrook, and a lot of different parts of the city are dealing within county, but just the ones that I am aware of are here in Twinbrook, and that is in general public safety. So the crimes similar to what Lieutenant Crawford spoke about, and then issues around pedestrian safety and walkability. And there's a lot of overlap between the two. for those of you that know me, I have been talking about the bike path for a very, very long time. And we've seen some good forward movement on some safety measures, and we hope to be able to provide some good news shortly as far as perhaps lighting along the bike path. I did one walk along the path with one of the officers who's assigned to our community. We don't have a specific officer because unfortunately Rockville PD is extremely understaffed. So I'm going to put that plug in because I know Lieutenant Crawford can't think as part of any sort of budget ask. We are always going to ask for more money for more police because everybody's got like 5 million hats. And so the community service officer that I walked along with, he also had a million other hats as well. It was really eye-opening. We shared information. I had some information that he didn't know about, like some spots where individuals just kind of hang out. And then I think a lot of you know, and especially as Lieutenant Crawford knows, pedestrian issues are very close to my heart. And in the process of telling him, you know, we're also looking at speeding along residential streets, I'm literally having this conversation with him and a car goes speeding by, and he actually did a hand stop of the car and gave him a warning that you need to, you know, slow down. This individual had a child in the back seat as well. It was just really fortuitous because I feel sometimes like when we talk about speeding in our neighborhood, people might look at us like, how do you know they're speeding? And this officer, he has a background in collision reconstruction, which is when there's a fatality in a collision. So we've got a lot of good stuff in motion. I hope that before our next meeting, we'll have some good news to share about making the path even safer so that we can get ahead of it and that we don't wait for, you know, some of these incidents to turn into even something even worse.
Thank you, Marissa. Any other comments before
I do
we
have a question, if that's possible.
Yeah, please go ahead. Is that Doris?
Yes.
Hi, Doris.
So I know that we had, since we've been in Twinbrook, we've had two kind of, I guess you could, people have rifled through our car overnight. I'm assuming it was both times that it had been left unlocked. We didn't do it on purpose. Maybe we had forgotten. But I know in speaking with our neighbors, everyone kind of says, oh, it's happened to me before. It's happened, I don't know, past couple of weeks or months. So is there a trend that this is upticking? Is it kind of how it's always been? And is it a serious problem enough for there to be action taken on it?
As far as the police is, we don't get all of them reported, but we do draw like a baseline from when they get reported. Over the summer, typically there's an uptick in theft from autos, mostly from unlocked vehicles. And that, whether that has something to do with the kids are out of school or not, that has trended down in the last couple of weeks, but there was an uptick all across the city. And I think the county over the summer.
Okay, and is there anything that the police department does to try and prevent it, or is it hard to track that?
Well, like I said, we can't track, you know, the people that come out in the morning and there's some loose change missing and they decide not to report it. So we can't control that, but we do tell people there's neighborhood bulletins that, you know, lock your car, don't leave valuables in sight. You know, if you leave a laptop and they see it, they may break your window. Normally, if they don't see anything inside, they won't break your window, but there's different levels of, you know, theft from autos. You can have the people that are out, airbags are a big thing right now, and catalytic converters are a big thing. You know, I don't know what it costs new, but you can get, from what they're saying, $1,500 for a stolen Prius catalytic converter. So those guys are out shopping those cars. The people are the theft from autos, like we normally, you know, relate to, is the kids walking down the street just pulling on door handles. So you have it on both ends, but the Toyota Prius from like 2005 to 2010 is the most valuable catalytic converter for scrap.
Yeah, we did know that. And actually, because I know that Lieutenant Crawford will not toot his own horn, so to speak, the Rockville PD also had a really successful gun buyback program since last we met. And it just got a lot of guns off the streets of Rockville, but also got a lot of ghost guns and some 3D printed ones too. And we can put a link on the website, or if I find it during the meeting, that is definitely another issue. And I hope, Lieutenant Crawford, I hope that it happens again, because I know personally I was on vacation when it happened.
Right.
So I would definitely love to be able to, promote that and let folks know that, and maybe we'll have another one since this one was successful.
Yeah, we had lines. We're gonna have to find somewhere else to do it though, because we had traffic all messed up because the line was down to Great Falls and 28. But yeah, I think we took in over 300 guns.
I mean, we do have a couple of rec centers in Twinbrook.
Yeah.
Like it might back up to the Parkway, but we also have a hawk signal there. So
Yeah.
maybe we can make it happen. Oh, and thank you, Kirsten, for sharing the link to, more than 300 firearms were collected. But yeah, I think, that would be something we might be able to touch base later and maybe collaborate on a place in Twinbrook to do that.
Yeah, and we also had our event, I guess it was before Lieutenant Paul left. So we had the catalytic converter etching and spray painting event, which was fully booked as well.
Yeah, that would be another good thing to do as well. I know there's a lot of Prius owners, my mother included, but she's not in Rockville, so I told her she wouldn't be eligible. But a lot of the Prius owners, she's a 2008 owner. And it can be really scary. So, but thank you. And thank you for all the work that you did on, all these issues. And also Lieutenant Crawford is invaluable as part of the liaison to the Rockville Pedestrian Advocacy Committee that I am a part of. So I just also wanted to give him a shout out in that regard too.
So we're meeting in 2 weeks for that.
Correct. We are not meeting on back to school night for Richard Montgomery because I have a freshman starting. So I should probably take notes and pay attention. But we'll be meeting on the 15th. Yes, the 15th.
Very good. Anything else for Lieutenant Crawford? I thank you for being here tonight and for all the work you do to keep our community safe.
Thank you. Did Major England send over the summary, or should I do that?
He did send one within the last few weeks. So
okay,
we'll get that on our website. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is the 2040 comprehensive plan, which is the city's master plan. Obviously 2040, it's a long-term plan, but it's got to start somewhere. And so I think that's what brings Mr. Meyers to us tonight. Hello, Chris. Nice to see you. And he's from the Comprehensive Planning Division, and the city staff have identified a number of actions. There's a lot of action items in this master plan, and the city staff have identified some that could potentially be achieved within the next 1 to 3 years or so. And it's from that list that we're looking to give some feedback to city staff. And I see Jim Wasilak is here as well from our chief of zoning. If I think I have that title right. So it's a number of the issues are zoning related that are on the list. So I think it's great to have you here with us. Chris, I'll pass it over to you.
Well, thank you, Vincent. Do appreciate the time this evening to present the near-term priorities. These priorities were actually pulled out of the comprehensive plan. So many of you, from what I've been told, have been involved in that process that's been taking place. Vincent, were they able to get the list of those 17 projects?
We did send out a questionnaire, a survey with those listed on there, and ask for respondents to gauge whether that was really important to them or not so important. So we did send that out. But if you have,
I have it pulled up, but I can't share the screen. So right now there's 17 projects that have been identified via everybody's input through the comprehensive plan process.
we'll give you what you need. Do you want?
Sure, that would be helpful. So individuals, we could take a look at them real quick during our short time and prioritize some of them. And maybe if there's some that individuals don't think are as a high of a priority, they can move down the list. But right now we have 17 projects. It'd be great to be able to prioritize maybe 10 of them and get comment and feedback. As this process ultimately, what we're talking about tonight will come before the Plan Commission, as well as being reported back to the mayor and council.
Mike, are you able to make him a presenter?
All right, I can make him a host. Is that what I'm supposed to do here?
That's it.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
So I was wondering if everybody can see the list. It begins with A1.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, how about, as this may be the first time for some of it, everybody in attendance tonight taking a look at this, I'll read through them real quick. First item, and I'm a newer arrival, so if I butcher pronunciation, I do apologize. So Veers Mill Road corridor to rezone properties in this area from single family to a new zone that allows a diverse range of housing types. 5946 Alpine Road to rezone from the R60, which is single family detached, to a new zone that also allows for a range of housing types. A2 and A3 is also at Veers Mill Road at Edmonston Road and Broadview to essentially do the same thing, but to change it to a mixed use neighborhood commercial context. A4 is the Twinbrook Center and Twinbrook Marketplace, which they're saying no zoning change is recommended, but it was a near-term priority. First Street Park to rezone the property from Park to RMD 10, which is a residential medium density in order to allow a residential build there. A6 is the Burgundy Park Shopping Center, and what that constitutes is rezoning the property from a mixed-use commercial to a mixed-use neighborhood commercial. A7 are properties at Baltimore Road and Twinbrook Parkway to rezone 1000 Twinbrook Parkway from a single-family detached dwelling to a residential medium density. A8 is the South Twinbrook near the Twinbrook Transit Station. So that is to rezone properties within the area from single family to a new zone, which includes a diverse range of housing types. A9 is 5906 Alpine Road to rezone the property from single family to our R&D 15, which is a residential medium density use, or an MXNC, which is a mixed use neighborhood commercial. This would essentially allow for attached residential or multi-unit residential and ancillary commercial uses. And a church and daycare would be allowed in both zones. P10 is to study the potential for a community node at the intersection of Veer Mills Drive and Edmonton's Drive. P2 is to implement planned improvements on Baltimore Road to improve conditions for people driving, walking, biking, and rolling, which would essentially be a pedestrian plan. P6 is study the feasibility of a pedestrian crossing across the CXX Metro rail lines at Alpine Road or other locations to link Twinbrook neighborhood with the Rockville Pike area. 01 is to maintain the residential character of a planning area. Number 13 is public rear alleys, such as those in older portions of the planning area, should be retained, such as adjacent to First Street. Number 15 is study potential locations for a bicycle and pedestrian facility over or under the CSX and Metro tracks, somewhere between Edmonston Drive and Twinbrook Parkway. Number 2 is focus on improving factors that enhance quality of life. And number 5 is to continue to install bus shelters throughout the community at bus stop locations that do not have shelters currently. So as you can see, there are a couple that are not as specific. So those may have lower priority or may fall out. So with that in mind, it's really kind of a work session today to hear your thoughts and to hopefully get these prioritized. So your voice can go back to our plan commission as well as to the mayor and council.
Thank you, Chris. I think for some of these, particularly for the zoning updates, I think it might be helpful to know what exactly a zoning change means and what sort of process there is in what sort of process it sets off in place. And I guess maybe if Jim, if you want to comment on sort of what is a zoning change and what it isn't, and the types of processes that go along with that.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. As you all know, the city adopted a new comprehensive plan last year with recommended changes in zone. And what happens in Maryland is that the comprehensive plan guides the zoning that is in place on each property. You probably also know that all properties in Rockville are zoned, and that determines what types of uses can occur on a property, what the development standards are for a property. In other words, what's the maximum height, what are the setbacks that are required, et cetera. Just down to those very basic things for each site. What the comprehensive plan did was recommend some zoning changes in this area, particularly in the Veers Mill corridor, as Chris outlined, and also some other sites closer to the Twinbrook Metro station. What we ultimately will do is do a comprehensive rezoning of the city. You may be familiar in other areas or other states where a property owner can come in and request a change of zone. In other words, if he has a residential zone, he can come in and he or she can come in and request a different type of zone. That's really not how zoning works in Rockville. And so the comp plan, as I said, guides the ultimate zoning for throughout the city. And we would do a comprehensive zone to either confirm the zoning if there are no changes proposed, or to change the zone if there are changes that are recommended in the plan. That's under normal circumstances. And I wanted to let everyone know that we are, in addition to updating our zoning code based on the comp plan that was recently adopted, we are going to be undertaking a comprehensive rewrite of our zoning ordinance, our laws that apply to land use, to make them easier to understand, bring it up into the current century, and any number of things to make it a better code for everyone that uses it. So that's going to involve a consultant team that we will bring on board, and probably will take a couple of years to do. And I mention that because what we're also proposing to allow, and the mayor and council have to authorize this, is to allow for zoning changes to occur in advance of that 2-year process. In other words, if there is project that is ready to move forward. It's in accordance with the comprehensive plan that they can request a zoning change, which you normally couldn't do, and have that zone applied on the property and proceed with development. So without getting into too much detail, we're going forward to the mayor and council on September 19th with a recommended change to our code that will allow all of that to happen. So an applicant for, say, I know if you've been following the comp plan, you know that the Twinbrook Community Church there at Halpine and Ardennes would like to sell, and there's a developer that's interested in developing that property. What that applicant could do is request that the zone that they need to develop it as they wish, and as the comp plan recommends, they could request that, go through a public process along with their development plan, so that the change of zone and the development plan that they're proposing is all considered at the same time, so they can move forward with that before we get the whole entire zoning ordinance rewritten. So we're calling those floating zones, and something a little bit new for Rockville, but we think it's a good solution for those properties that are interested in moving forward. They won't be hindered by the fact that we need to rewrite our zoning code. That may be more information than you needed, but that's kind of basically what's happening in the near term.
You know, I think that backdrop is very helpful, because, you know, there's, you know, while there may be issues with certain properties and certain locations, I think, you know, they all, you know, there's a consistent theme here that was, you know, basically allowing more options for, you know, particularly in the R60, the single unit detached dwelling. So there was generally most of these related to zoning were allowing more options there. There was one question about what exactly a community node was, that which might be helpful to evaluate. Remember which one it was here, but it was a community node at Edmonston and Veers Mill. Either Chris or Jim would want to describe what the community node was.
That is in accordance with our comprehensive plan. As you may know, the county is looking at implementing bus rapid transit along the Veers Mill corridor from between Wheaton and Rockville. And so in accordance with that plan, the city's comprehensive plan is looking at adding some residential density in certain areas along the Veers Mill Road corridor. And the intersection of Edmonston and Veers Mill is one of those areas where there could be some increased residential density and even a little bit of commercial to support that density, and vice versa, in accord along with the transit station. So it'd be a kind of a low scale version of our metro stations, but just a very reduced scale given the density that would be afforded by bus rapid transit.
That's P10 on this list here, item P10, that related to the community node.
Vincent, we have a couple other questions from the chat. And I think I'm going to go in reverse order just because it's easier for me. Allison has a question about why the telephone and other wires were not put underground as the work has been done along Baltimore Road. I figured it might be a DPW question, but if anybody who is on right now might have that answer.
Sure, this is Jim Woods. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works. Good evening, everybody. I can attempt to answer that question. I believe, as many of you know, the Baltimore Road project has been planned and now is under construction for quite some time. This question about the relocation and undergrounding of the overhead utility wires has come up fairly recently. And really the answer is that it's just simply too costly. The cost to underground overhead utilities, it really raises the overall cost of the project quite significantly. We have cost estimates that range, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, per mile. And so when we evaluated the cost benefit back when the project was first visioned, that was not part of the scope of the project. If you do recall, perhaps many of you know, the project was funded, or at least partially funded, by a federal grant. And so the scope of that project really has to be defined very early on and approved by the grantee in order for us to move forward with it. So that is why we did not do it on Baltimore Road. There are other projects that are being planned that, it's a potential. Again, we would have to consider the cost impact. The city does not control the overhead utility lines. They are owned by the utility provider, whether it be Pepco, Verizon, Comcast, or others. So we would not be able to underground the utilities at our own cost. We would have to pay the utility companies to do so.
Excellent. We have another question, Vincent. And it does connect directly to, and I'm sorry, I can't, I have bad eyes. I really can't read what number this is. But it's one of the possible priorities. Is there any opportunity to use zoning changes to incentivize redevelopment of the Veers Mill Shopping Center? So that would be Twinbrook Marketplace, and I can never remember the other one. And Twinbrook Marketplace, as we all know, we just lost CBS in there as well. So I think that's a really timely question from Lou.
And this is Jim Waslak with Community Planning Development Services. I just wanted to say that that certainly is a possibility, in that there is mixed-use zoning on those properties now, and it doesn't seem to have incentivized any redevelopment over the last 15 years. So perhaps, and I don't think the plan recommended many changes from what exists currently in terms of potential. But that is something that we should look at, and because ultimately it is the desire of the plan that those areas could redevelop as mixed use, still provide the retail uses that the community needs, but also provide for additional residential, particularly given the fact that BRT will be coming. So that's a good point, something we can look at as we're rewriting the zoning code.
And looks like, oh, and to our friend from DPW, Mr. Woods, it looks like we did miss the gentleman from Pepco, so we could have had that conversation before he hopped off this meeting. Let's see. I saw another question in here. From Jonathan. With regards to zoning, it looks like that there's a possibility that zoning changes may affect some of the residential aspects of Twinbrook. I'll just leave that as that. Are all neighborhoods in Rockville also being studied to make similar changes? And I defer to Mr. Wasilek and his crew to talk about what some of the other neighborhoods have gone through and are going through right now.
Well, in a word, the answer is yes. The comprehensive plan looked at various neighborhoods around the city where additional residential density could be accommodated and still maintain the quality character of our neighborhoods that we all enjoy. So we actually have made some zoning changes already. If you're familiar with the Stone Street study that was ongoing for a couple of years, worked with the community to come up with a zone that the community could support if it were implemented on properties that are currently zoned R60 for single family homes. And we're talking right at across the street from the Rockville Metro Station, that there is new zoning there called RMD infill zone that allows for duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes on those same properties that now hold a single family home. So it's not a huge increase in density, but it still provides for some additional residential density right there at the Metro. And we're also looking at, well, there was rezonings that took place up and down the Stone Street corridor in the vicinity of Lincoln Park and East Rockville already that would allow for additional residential density. And I will say, in working with the West End neighborhood, they actually were supportive of ensuring that in the MXT zone, which is a transition zone between their residential neighborhood and the town center, that's also supportive of multifamily development. And again, it would be very low scale, compatible with the residential neighborhood, but the community was actually supportive of additional multifamily that can provide either for reuse of some historic properties or some very low scale type of resident multifamily or attached residential project in their community as well.
And really quickly to go back up before I forget, I was scrolling this whole time, and perhaps my good friend FM can weigh in on this as well. Little curious about why the pedestrian crossing is on a list of prioritizations, only because it's in progress and we have already, the city has already allocated complete design funding. It's pretty much a high priority and has been for some time. So just kind of wondering what the thinking behind that being on this list is. I understand everything else is kind of new, but I'm looking at, I'm sorry, I'm like, oh yes, it's number 15. If you're going by the Twinbrook and Twinbrook 4's other recommendations. I know it says near term in progress, but I just wanted to flag that because I think the community said several times that this is a high priority, or it is a priority.
You're absolutely right. I think these projects, both that one and what I identify as number 10, both of those are basically what we're doing right now. I think the list is compilation of all the recommended action that 2040 had talked about. So when they created this list and it was recommended in 2040 plan, we hadn't started that project yet. So that's why we put the status that is under progress. And I think this is just compilation of all the actions or tasks that was identified. By no means anything beside that. So.
So I guess just to characterize, we had received as of earlier this evening some almost close to 50 responses to the survey, and there were some I haven't really had a chance to summarize all the results, but I would say that there were a few clear things that did show that they were widely popular, and those were the bus shelters. I'm gonna find it on the screen here right away, but there was improving the bus shelters, the pedestrian crossing that we were just referring to remains a priority for the neighborhood. The Baltimore Road improvements were another one. There was one of these items here dealt with improving pedestrian and bicycle safety on Baltimore Road. There was general support for that. As the zoning changes, there was it was more mixed. There's some but the one that had more support was certainly the ones near the metro station. So I think it's A8 there. Where it's close to the transit stations, there's generally strong support for accommodating more density there. And I think as a neighborhood, we probably have to consider whether, one of these questions was dealt with the residential character of the neighborhood. And, does the residential character of the neighborhood change if we add more residents? And, is it still resident, what are the views on that? I think is probably, thing we should hear.
So Vincent, Sarah Salazar has her hand up in the general chat, and then there's one other question from the text chat that I can share with you after this.
Hello, Sarah.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. I kind of wish I would have waited to fill out the survey until after this presentation, because I honestly wasn't sure what would happen to all of the rezoning items on the list. It seems like it was kind of still up in the air the way it's phrased in a lot of cases. Like especially, I just looked up again, the 5946 Halpine Road property. That property's been a mess since I've moved to the neighborhood, at least, which was end of 2014. And it's just a complete eyesore. It's got a junkyard in the back, a warehouse is falling apart, like 3 or 4 sheds on the side. It's just completely unsightly, and it's one of the gateways into our neighborhood. I think it's terrible that that's one of the things people first see when they come to Twinbrook from the metro. And so when I saw that one, I just thought, they're just trying to get rezoned so they can continue operating the way they have been, because it seems like a commercial property of some kind. You don't see like a residential type activity at that house. And so I wasn't supportive of that one, but if they were to redevelop the property, then I would change my answer on that one. And I might put a higher priority on some of the other ones too, if it was a little clearer what the plans were for the properties. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't know if you want Sarah's. Yeah.
I was going to ask Chris if there was anything, I guess, if there was anything specific that he wanted to hear comments on that maybe we haven't marked on.
During the discussion, I grabbed the 2 priorities that were discussed so far in the preliminary results of the survey relative to Baltimore Road and the pedestrian plan, as well as the bus shelters. I'm hearing that there are support for higher density around the metro stations, and I captured that. But if there's other thoughts, would love to be able to capture them and being able to, take that onto the Plan Commission, other staff members, and the mayor and the Common Council.
But we still have time to take the survey. It's not too late.
No, I think maybe we can leave it up for another day or so. And and then maybe summarize. And this is something that we can do for staff too. Is just just take the data that we have and give it and provide a summary of it to Chris and Public Work, the planning department rather, and
that'd be great, Vincent, if you could leave it up for another day and get some more comments on that.
How many times can we take the survey? Is it just?
It's single use, Ruth. I see what you're doing over there.
Yeah, I tried to redo it. It didn't let me do it.
Okay.
So I think we can change that in a setting though. So that's not a big problem. Chris, if you can, the city is already, because I know it is already working on the pedestrian master plan, similar to what they did for the bicycle master plan. So how are the priorities as we're looking at them for our community going to mesh with or be integrated in things like the pedestrian master plan?
How about
Or
on
anybody.
this one?
Anybody on that one, sorry.
I think I can
Jim
answer
or
that.
either Jim?
Sure. And
Either
folks-
of the Jims?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So as you probably know, Marissa, the pedestrian master plan is seeking to gain as much input as possible from a variety of different sources. So, as Brian and on our staff is seeking to gather input from all these various stakeholders, certainly comments that are provided on the short-term comp plan will be included as part of the data gathering as we begin to, really further develop the pedestrian master plan. So, Brian is aware that the comp plan implementation is being discussed at various different community associations and with the Planning Commission and the Mayor and Council. Obviously at the RPAC and RBAC meetings, there's lots of discussion about these topics. So I don't think any of the input that you're providing through these surveys is going to go unused in other various city initiatives.
And in a timely manner, Liz followed up on that comment. Will the city of Rockville align with the National Capital Planning and Parks? I should know that more. Beers Mill Corridor Master Plan in regards to streetscape changes to accommodate the bus rapid transit lanes on Beers Mill. If so, is the city's proposed rezoning along Beers Mill in anticipation of those changes, and why? Because I know we're talking, when we've mentioned BRT so far, we're talking about 355 Rockville Pike, because that's kind of the new hot thing right now. But I also know that we'll be looking at BRT on Beers Mill as well, to hopefully alleviate some of the traffic there.
I can attempt to answer this question. I'm not directly involved in a lot of the planning, but I can assure you that many of the countywide initiatives, especially around transit projects, are being coordinated with a variety of different agencies, including the State Highway Administration, City of Rockville, and Montgomery County Department of Transportation. So as these master plan type of discussions occur, we in city staff do coordinate directly with our fellow colleagues to ensure that any zoning changes are either one in anticipation of these other big transit projects that are coming on, or that they kind of mesh together. So we are aware of many of the initiatives across the county. We're working closely with our colleagues both in the county and the state, and across departments within the city. So the Department of Public Works, which is the primary agency dealing with things related to BRT, we are communicating directly with our colleagues in CPDS and in Montgomery County Park and Planning. So I believe we are aligned pretty closely, and we are keeping in the loop on different types of initiatives that are occurring across the region.
And this is Jim Waslike. Just to add to that, the rezonings really will deal with the properties that abut the corridor. In other words, the right of way for Veers Mill, in attempt to bring about changes in land use in the vicinity. We probably do need to come up with a streetscape plan as an implementation step to more fully articulate what that will look like within the right of way itself.
And if I may, the park and planning study and any recommended rezoning will be limited to properties that are within the county.
Does anybody else have any other questions, while we have the staff here, about what the content of these items are, or what their any interpretation that needs to be made here on some of these, because this is sort of written in planning ease, and it might be helpful to take advantage of having the experts here while we do.
Yeah, could I ask, this is Allison, could I ask a question about just this is development along Veers Mill? Are the setbacks and all that kind of, like, how does that look I'm trying to visualize this because I do think it makes more sense to have, you know, higher density, but and what they've done along Rockville Pike, you know, putting the sidewalks further away from the cars, all that kind of stuff, you know, in the build. But I don't see where we have space to do that along Veers Mill. So I'm having a hard time like visualizing how you get the higher density, but also the pedestrian safety, but also some trees, so it still looks decent.
Hi, Jim.
And that's what I think will be important, will be a streetscape plan for how all those elements will work together. And we do anticipate that properties probably will not redevelop one at a time, that someone will in all likelihood start assembling properties. And then that affords a more, I guess, cohesive design that takes into account all of those things that you were mentioning. So
I think we have a model for that with Twinbrook Quarter too, where lots of properties were assembled and the cohesive design, it enabled a cohesive design.
Exactly. You know, this will be a much reduced scale, I would anticipate, but the concept is similar.
Allison, anything else? Good.
No, I did have a question actually about, because we have two big unused schools. Well, they're kind of used. So Carl Spanberg and Broome, and I realize MCPS owns the buildings, but Rockville owns the land. And like, how do you take those large properties into account in this? I mean, they're not anywhere on here. And they're really also not on major corridors. So I'm kind of, but knowing how MCPS works, if you're going to be putting all these new people in, at some point, they're going to say, oh yeah, we're redeveloping this as a school or something. I mean, I would assume they would.
Well, that's certainly a possibility. And we have seen that both in the city and the county where former schools become schools again, based on the demand, student demand. So that's certainly possible. I wouldn't anticipate necessarily redevelopment for other uses. It seems like MCPS likes to hold on to their properties and either backfill them with institutional uses and other types of things. So I think that's what we'd anticipate going forward. I would say that I believe MCPS owns the land, but the city does lease some of the fields behind the former Broome Middle School. But I believe MCPS does own the land that those buildings are on as well.
Thank you.
Vincent, it looks like we have.
Yeah, I was unmuting. So I think what we'll do is we'll summarize what we've received so far. If you feel like you want to expand, if you already filled out your form and you want to expand or maybe even take a view contrary to what you had submitted before. If you want, you can always email me at twinbrook.president@gmail.com. And we can add that to we have the comments that we've received. I'll give one last opportunity here for anybody to jump in here if there was anything from the.
Vincent, we might want to put a pin in the idea of the redevelopment of the shopping centers. We had some good discussion in the chat. I think that there's definitely a lot of interest right now and a lot of frustration. So I just wanted to put a pin in that for everybody on this meeting, that this is something that is it's a high priority for us insofar as we want a attractive piece of property, and how can, you know, the city help when you have a landlord that's not local and does not feel accountable to the community that services it.
Marissa, if I could, I did want to note that this is a priority for the mayor and council as well. And we're actually meeting as staff with owners of various neighborhood scaled shopping centers throughout the city over the next couple of months to address some of the very issues that I saw in the chat and that you've talked about. So, you know, in the near term, we're looking at those issues as well.
Perfect.
Excellent. Yeah, that the loss of the pharmacy was resonated here. So that's good. And the Burgundy Center also received some. I don't know that if I mentioned it, but there's an item on the list about Burgundy Center as well, and that one was that one from our that one there, A6. That receives some broad support. All right, Christopher, anything else before we wrap up on this one?
No, just wanted to say we're available. If you have any questions or thoughts, never hesitate to reach out and contact Jim or myself. We're here to hear your ideas, and we look forward to continuing to bring this and shop it out and hear your input. So we greatly appreciate the time tonight to be able to have a renewed work session and to discuss the near-term priorities that were identified through the public participation of the 2040 plan. So thank you.
Thank you. I hope this was helpful. Jim Wasilak, thank you as well. I'm glad you were here. All right, let's move on then to a related topic, which is one of the items on the action list here, which was the pedestrian crossing or bridge, go from Lewis over to the Rockville Pike side. And we have Jim Woods here from the Department of Public Works, which has been very actively engaging with various stakeholders here, and there's the city funded a study that is going to get into going to full gear here pretty soon, and so we just wanted to hear a little bit about what's been happening and where we need to come into the situation. So go ahead, Jim.
Great, thank you. Again, my name is Jim Woods. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works for the City of Rockville. I know many of you have spoken with our director, Craig Siminoa, on various occasions. Craig had a conflict this evening. He's asked me to step in. I'm well versed in the project itself. I've been involved in many of the meetings that we've been holding over the last few months. And, you know, with me tonight, we also have Farmars Mokhtauri. He is the project manager for this initiative. And again, he's been involved since the very beginning of the discussion of this high priority project. So I know Craig met with you guys back in April of this past year. And since that time, a lot has happened. And although I think we can all agree that we're still in the preliminary phases of the project, the city staff has done a lot of work over the last few months, really seeking to advance the project. There's a lot going on. Like we said, we have initiated a feasibility study with our consultant. Our consultant's name is Brutus and Associates. They're out of Columbia, Maryland. They were hired to execute the Twinbrook pedestrian and bicycle bridge feasibility analysis, which initially the task was to hire them just to do a feasibility analysis and develop a couple of options of where the crossing could be located and different design elements that we could incorporate. Since that time, the mayor and council has actually fully funded the design of the crossing. So although the current task is to initiate a feasibility study, bring that study to a 30% design, we have an option built into our task order with the consultant to take that design all the way to 100%. And we're prepared to do that if we are able to, ensure that the location is feasible and we can move forward with it. Along with the feasibility study, which I'll go into more detail on shortly, there's a few other things going on. The city has been coordinating closely with some adjacent developments. Obviously, Twinbrook Quarter is one of the big ones. The landowner BF Saul, we have been working with them to discuss potential landing sites across their development. And I'll get into a bit more detail on our discussions with them in a moment. We also, I believe we had indicated back in April that there was an opportunity to work with an adjacent developer on the east side of the tracks on Lewis Avenue at the McCormick Paint property. They had come in to discuss a potential development opportunity with the city staff. We took that opportunity to say, hey, this would be a great, potential location for a landing site of this, important crossing of the railroad tracks. Since that time, that development opportunity has gone away. The current landowner and development team is not pursuing a pending application right now. So right now we're not aware of any development opportunity on the east side of the tracks at Lewis Avenue that we can team up with for a landing site. But that is a change from our discussion back in April. We've also worked or have had conversations with WMATA. Many of you are probably aware that WMATA is undertaking what's the name of the study here, farmers? I want to make sure I get the title right. It's called the Twinbrook Metro Station Capacity Study. They're evaluating basically some ridership numbers, mobility in and out of the station, looking to potentially make some improvements over time. We have taken that opportunity to work closely with them on our priority, which is the crossing, and also taken the feedback we've gotten from the community about opening the Metro tunnel 24 hours a day. We've taken that request directly to the Metro team who is evaluating the capacity at the station. And they have just recently returned our request and committed to studying the costs and considerations necessary to modify the station to allow for 24-hour tunnel access. Okay, so that's falls short of making a full commitment that they're going to do it, yet they have taken the steps necessary to evaluate what would it take to make that tunnel 24-hour access. Making sure the fare stations are secure, making sure the mobility is clear all the way through. So there will have to be some physical improvements necessary to make that station 24-hour access, but Metro has recognized that this is a community priority. This is a city priority. It will take possible funding to make that happen. And the city is prepared to possibly include the costs necessary to make that access 24 hours into a potential federal grant application in conjunction with the crossing itself. Okay, so that we may have to team up with WMATA on a federal grant application. That could be a component of the project, so we can do it all at once. So while I'm talking about grants, this is really where city staff has really dug in. Aside from kicking off the feasibility study, we all know that this is not going to be an inexpensive project, so we are really pursuing any of the federal grant opportunities that are available. Many of you know that the bipartisan infrastructure law, which was signed by Congress earlier this year, has various different programs that are offering funding for transportation related projects. One specific program is called the Reconnecting Communities Pilot Grant. It is a 5-year program with federal funds that allows for communities and transit owners, or really just any major infrastructure, roadway infrastructure project that kind of cut off a community from each other. So railroads, major highways. The federal government has recognized that those types of projects have really separated communities. So they have now developed a pilot program called Reconnecting Communities, which will dedicate federal funds to really connect those communities back by either removing the barriers or, this project is a perfect example of what they are looking for, of creating a crossing to reconnect communities that were separated by transit and transportation infrastructure. So we are targeting that specific grant opportunity as part of our funding strategy. Okay, so any questions on that? I know I'm going to get into the details of the feasibility study, and I know probably many of you have questions about where's this going to be, what locations are we considering, and so on and so forth. I'll get into that, but any questions so far?
What's the timeline for that grant program then?
Sure. Yeah, that's an important question. So let me get into kind of the timeline of the overall project, and we'll kind of jump in to see, where our opportunity would lie to apply for that grant. So the grant is a 5-year program. This is the first year of it. The grant application is actually due in October of this year. Okay, so the grant offers 2 different things. They offer planning assistance, which is really for the design, the feasibility, basically the phase that we're currently in. And then there are construction grants. The construction grants are offered at a 50% federal share, 50% local share. The big thing is that the project has to be at least a $10 million project for you to be eligible for the grant. So, 50-50, that means it's a $5 million city commitment for the construction project. We are really not ready to go forward with a construction grant application at this fiscal year or this calendar year. So what we're looking to do is to take our feasibility study and our design over the next 12 months and get to the point where our application is going to be extremely competitive when we submit for it in year 2 of 5. We would have a much better chance of obtaining the funding. Our project will be basically, to the point where we could be shovel ready. We'll have done a lot of the analysis that's necessary to obtain the construction funding. So we're looking at a grant application in October of 2023 to seek the construction funding. So we have a lot of work to do to get to that point. And where we're currently at is we have initiated a feasibility study. We hired our consultant. That contract was awarded mid-July of the past year. On August 3rd, the city staff had a kickoff meeting. And since that kickoff meeting, we've done a lot of coordination with WMATA and with the adjacent property owners. We've decided now that the scope of work for this feasibility study, the very first thing that we need to do is to develop a preliminary order of magnitude cost estimate for the type of bridge that we're considering implementing at various locations. Really what the reason for doing that step, which is really an extra step, we would typically just go into the feasibility analysis and the consultant may develop a few options, a few locations, present them to us and to the community, and we can start evaluating what may be feasible. This step allows for us to quickly eliminate possible options that would just be too expensive to pursue either through the grant or through the city's implementation. So specifically what we're looking to do is our coordination with BF Sol has, for many years as Twinbrook Corridor has developed, they have suggested to us that they would be willing to offer a landing spot integrated into their project at a location very specific to their development. They call it Building 7. It's a future phase development. It's basically along the Chapman Avenue extension, just north of the Twinbrook Metro platform. Their idea is, great city, you guys can build a pedestrian bridge. We'll allow you to land on our property, and we want to connect directly to the Metro platform with some kind of T connection off of the main bridge that crosses from the Twinbrook community to the west side of the tracks. And that alternative, although great for Twinbrook Corridor, it's a very complex project, a very difficult way to implement what our priority is, which is the crossing of pedestrians and bicyclists from the Twinbrook community to the Rockville Pike side of the tracks. We want to take our first shot at developing a preliminary order of magnitude cost estimate for that option. And if that option is proven to be just, way too expensive and not feasible for us to implement, that will allow us to say, okay, we can eliminate that from our consideration and move forward with two options that may be more reasonable that we can get done in a reasonable amount of time. So we're doing that step right now. We've talked to PFSOL and we've told them, really, really honestly, that this may be a bridge too far for us to consider connecting the bridge to your future project, which is not even, a future phase, which is not even planned just yet, and a connection to the metro platform while using a grant program, which is only a 5-year grant. Tying all those things together may be very challenging. So BFSOL has actually come back to us and recognized that may not be feasible. It may be too complex, too expensive to implement. And they have backed off from their initial position that they would not allow for any other landing spot other than at Building 7. They've now opened to the idea of alternate landing locations along their property, parallel to the tracks at various different locations, provided that we, in conjunction with them and WMATA, sought to make a better connection from the Chapman Avenue area to the metro entrance on the west side of tracks. So that is that's a big change from where BFSOL was even just a few months ago, where they had only said, one spot and one spot only, and we wouldn't consider any other locations. They've now opened up the opportunity for us to discuss with them various other locations, provided it doesn't impact their development. And then when I say Building 7, I see in the chat, I know that doesn't really mean much to you. Later on, Farmars can bring up an exhibit. We'll show kind of the vicinity of where we're talking about in relation to the existing features on Lewis Avenue and Chapman Avenue.
I'm sorry, I was gonna do that while you were talking, but unfortunately I cannot share my screen.
Oh, sure. So maybe if we can get
Farmars, this is Mike. I'll give you access. Just give me a second here.
So while Farmers is doing that, the city can perform a lot of the planning and the analysis without having the benefit of the grant. That actually would slow us down if we were to pursue a planning grant. We want to be able to aggressively advance the feasibility study, the design, and get to a point where we're really have a strong application for construction in year 2 of 5, which will allow us to move forward to construction even earlier than waiting for assistance in the planning side of things. So let's just orient you. Building 1 on the bottom right of the screen, that's the Wegmans site. So that is the intersection of Alpine and 355. To the top right of the screen is the existing metro parking garage and entrance. And that's the proposed Chapman Avenue extension that's at the corner of Alpine and Chapman that you see right there. So Building 7 is the first building to the north adjacent to the tracks of the existing parking garage. First large building. They have a small retail building called Building 8 that they're proposing. So they've always suggested that Building 7 will be a natural location for a pedestrian landing, provided that we would also then, and when we say a T connection, we basically mean another connection that goes parallel to the tracks, connecting directly to the metro platform. Again, at a cost shared by the city and our partners. So that is not our priority. Our priority is the east-west crossing. That's what our scope of our CIP project is. That is what our feasibility analysis is looking at. And the only way we would even consider doing that is for us to be able to obtain a landing spot within the Twinbrook corridor development that makes sense for the project. The benefit of this location was that the McCormick paint site on Lewis Avenue is directly adjacent from that location. So if there was a development opportunity, there could be a way to integrate both developments and get the necessary right-of-way and easements in order to land the bridge on both sides. Anywhere else we'd have to, there's no other land along the east side of the metro that the city owns outright that we could develop. Any site would require a negotiation with the existing property owners to acquire the necessary right of way and land to construct the bridge and land it safely to make those connections. So back to the feasibility study. After this order of magnitude cost estimate is conducted, where we can potentially rule out the direct connection to Building 7 and the T connection to the WMATA platform, we will move directly into what we're calling the feasibility analysis. And that will essentially take 2 locations along the entire study area and evaluate their cost, their the property and environmental impacts, the feasibility of construction, the safety of the bridge, the bridge characteristics, meaning the dimensions, the height, whether it's a ramp versus an elevator or a combination of the two on either side. So a lot of those things will be developed during the alternatives analysis. And this is really where we will have the most coordination with you guys, the stakeholders, the community, where we'll be seeking public input into various different components of the project. Primarily, how does the bridge look? What kind of design is going to be included? Where will it be exactly located? What's the impact during construction, and so on and so forth. So right now we plan on coming back to you. I believe you have a meeting on October 18th. During that time, we'll be able to have a more specific location that we'll consider. If we are eliminating the Building 7 option, we will look for another location in that general vicinity where we may be able to land the bridge on the Twinbrook Quarter property, aligning it across on the Lewis Avenue side where it may make sense. That's kind of the discussions we'll be having with our consultant over the next few months and weeks, and we'll be coming back to you. And then after that alternatives analysis is really kicked off and we're getting into the details of a design and a feasibility, we will come back again and really work out even further details of the bridge itself. We'll be talking about a beam or a truss or a cable and the substructure of the bridge. Those are design elements that we'll also be seeking input on. That will probably occur more likely in the spring of 2023 as we get further into the preliminary design. And that's where, again, where you'll have the most impact on elements of the bridge and how we can incorporate them. Okay, so so obviously I said Twinbrook Quarter is considering other options or other locations where they may be willing to offer land for a landing spot. The next logical location is at the northern end of their site, which really, if you look at this exhibit, the northern end of their site is the top right corner of where the red kind of exhibit is located. That's another location where we'll be looking very closely at. That location has a lot of benefits. It really is further away from the metro, which, as we understand, is one of the primary goals of this crossing. We want to kind of be equidistant from Twinbrook Parkway and Edmonston Drive, where the existing crossings are, especially if we're able to open up the Twinbrook Metro tunnel. Having a pedestrian bridge immediately adjacent to it kind of it doesn't really provide as much value as if it's a bit further away. So the northern end of Twinbrook Quarter is a bit more it kind of checks a little bit more of the boxes of what the project's priorities are, and in fact may be a simpler and less expensive option to implement. Okay, so any questions on what we've brought forward so far? I know I've kind of been all over the place.
No, but this is tremendous. This is quite a bit more than we've seen and previously. So this is great. Anything? I'm gonna check.
I can say one more update. One more quick update, Vincent. Sorry, I didn't want to off somebody who had a question, but I believe I mentioned that the project is fully funded for design. So the mayor and council have appropriated funds in our CIP project up to $400,000 to advance the design beyond the feasibility study beyond the 30%, which is kind of typically the cutoff for what a feasibility analysis is done. They've funded it to 100% construction documents, but we have not yet funded the construction, right? So that will be a future fiscal year. That will be highly dependent on our grant opportunities, our funding strategy, our partners with the adjacent property owners, and then also, you know, what style the bridge is, you know, how tall it is, how long it's going to be, what are the elements at the landing sites, what property do we have to acquire to obtain the landing locations on the opposite side. So there's still a variety of things we need to consider before we can even arrive at a construction cost estimate. When we do so, we will be putting forward that cost estimate into our CIP, and we're going to heavily prioritize it, as you are, for construction funding from the mayor and council, which will be considered at the next few cycles of CIP funding. So this is not going to be an inexpensive and simple project. We recognize that, but we are in a position where we will compete very competitively with other agencies across the country for the Reconnecting Communities federal grant. We think it's a perfect project or a grant opportunity that aligns with the goals of our project. And we're looking forward to getting far enough along in the design that when we put forward our grant application, we are confident that we're going to score highly and hopefully get federal funding.
Well, we'll be cheering you on, and if there's, you know, sometimes there's if there's statements of community support or something like that, that's part of the application. I'm sure we'll hear from them.
There absolutely will be. In fact, you may even be listed as a partner in the application. They are seeking for, you know, partnerships of community associations, transit authorities, government agencies, and even private property owners. So we foresee a grant application being a partnership between the various property owners where the landing may be. Ourselves will be the bridge owner, and WMATA and CSX, which will be the facilities that we're crossing over. So they will also be a partner in this.
So just to sort of summarize, so what's happening now, or what will happen soon, is the study will sort of look at this cost estimates in an order of magnitude sense, and from there maybe rule out or rule in options, and then you come back to us with, or you know, with some set of options, and we react to that. Is that sort of what you're envisioning?
That's correct. Yeah. So right now we're asking our consultant to develop an order of magnitude cost estimate for various options. We will probably roll out a few of them as not being feasible. We'll come back to you in middle of October with 2 recommended options that we will pursue taking through the feasibility analysis process, right? So that will involve taking them all the way to 30% design, which will then present us with an opportunity to make a decision about a preferred alternative. So that will be the next step. Is here are the 2 alternatives, get your feedback on them, and then we'll proceed with our further design, which again, you'll have input on, because some of the elements that are going to be evaluated on the feasibility study are not just how much does it cost to cross the tracks, it's also what elements are you looking for in the bridge, you know, elevators versus ramps and architectural features and those types of things.
Yeah. All right, Lou's got a question.
What is? Hey, Vincent, we have a question in the chat after Lou, and then I have a follow-up question, but go ahead, Lou.
As far as the north area by that blue line on the map, what's your take on the abandoned right-of-ways opposite the butt end of Brook?
Yeah, well, we want to be very careful not to talk about specific residential properties. You know, we haven't gone through an analysis. We don't want to, you know, target any specific addresses and say, hey, this is the location that we're planning on, you know, moving forward with. But certainly the end of Brook Drive is one of the locations that we're looking at very closely. There is some city right-of-way already present at that location.
There's several.
Right, there are several slivers of land that the city owns. You know, they're I can't remember if they're owned by deed or if they're right of way, but there is a location that's kind of carved out there already. it's likely not wide enough for us to construct the bridge without some private property impacts. But that is also one of the components of the feasibility study that we'll be looking at is, can you construct something here without impacting private property? And even if you can, is that really feasible to have a large structure directly next to a single family home? So even if we can fit it in, is it the right thing to do without, further discussions with the property owner?
Thank you.
There's a question from the chat, which I think maybe you kind of addressed here, but the question was, what are the obstacles, if any, to the possible bridge location to the north?
Right. Well, I could talk about it from either side, right? So on the west side, which is the Rockville Pike side, the obstacles are really negotiating with the current landowners to obtain a site that they will be amenable to actually land the bridge and connect it to Rockville Pike. So, Twinbrook Quarter is a long development time period. So even if the bridge were constructed, it would not tie directly into that existing development immediately, but it would have to accommodate for the proposed development. So we would have to obtain a series of temporary easements to get a bridge crossing from directly at the end of the tracks all the way out to Rockville Pike through some of the commercial properties that will continue to exist for quite some time until Twinbrook Quarter is further developed. So that is an obstacle on that side. On the east side, the primary obstacles are, again, just access to Lewis Avenue. The benefit of the northern location is that you guys are likely more familiar with this than even us, but the tracks sit lower than the properties in that location, right? The big retaining wall is actually, separating the grade from the property going down to the tracks, meaning that when we're constructing a bridge over the tracks, we don't have to go as high, right? The elevators, the ramps, they don't have to go up as high to get over the CSX and WMATA Railroad, because you already have a grade separation from the property to the tracks. As you go further south towards the metro station itself, that evens out, right? That levels out, meaning that a bridge crossing closer to the Twinbrook Metro would actually have to be constructed higher to get over top and get the clearance necessary for the railroad and then come back down, right? So we do have the benefit of grade. You can do more with ramps rather than having an elevator, or, either way, it's going to be a smaller structure to land the bridge on the northern side.
As a follow-up question, you've mentioned several partners you've engaged with so far, WMATA, BF Sol, property owners along Lewis. Has there been any outreach at this point to CSX, and have they given any preliminary feedback? And do you foresee any issues with them moving forward with this project?
No, we have not engaged with CSX yet. However, it's been our experience in the past that although the permitting requirements with CSX are fairly cumbersome to gain access to the railroad right away and to do what's necessary to either maintain our existing infrastructure or to install new infrastructure, their requirements are very specific. We know what the height necessary. We know what their tallest rail cars are. That information is widely available, and we've have experience in other locations dealing with CSX. So although their permission and permits will be necessary, we don't envision them being as close of a partner as WMATA is, right? Because WMATA, we may have many elements that we're going to be communicating with WMATA. If it's a improved entrance to the metro station, whether it's a connection to their platform, whether we're tying into their existing capacity study, they're going to be a partner, right? And of course, opening up the tunnel access, we foresee WMATA being a much closer partner than CSX.
I think the coordination with CSX is happening during the construction far more than this stage where it's design and all that. So.
Great, thank you.
Anything else on this? So we'll look forward to this coming back Probably in October, maybe with more specificity around the options. And we know you're going to be very busy in the meantime with all the players here. So that's great. I think we really appreciate this this window into what's been going on and where things stand.
Listen, if I may, I just want to let you know, I just want to add, this project and the way staff and the mayor and council approach it is unprecedented in terms of what we have done, because all the other projects like this, we usually go through feasibility, then you go through a couple of years of later on for design, and then eventually toward basically looking at construction. Through the hard work that our planning department did by identifying the need for this crossing, and then through the coordination with you guys and working with basically mayor and council allocating money, we basically have gone through unprecedented acceleration on this project, and we're putting ourselves in a position that we can even secure construction funding, and hopefully we have this done with the federal grant constructed within the time frame that the grant allows.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Good work, everyone. Well, let's keep, long way to go though, right? So
Sure, yeah, we're gonna continue the partnership, and again, as the project gets a bit more clarity and the construction cost estimate comes forward, we know one of your agenda items possibly is to talk about CIP project priorities. This does not have construction funding yet, and the city has a lot of priorities competing on the general fund. So we want to continue to prioritize it internally, but I know you will also be doing the same externally.
yeah, what a masterful transition there, Jim. Thank you. The next item on the agenda was, what do we want to ask for this next year, and so in terms of capital budget requests. So the city is asking, even though we just passed the FY23 budget a few months ago, now it's time to start thinking about the fiscal year 2024. And so one of the things that we have been asking for and will continue to ask is related to the crossing here. And so is the design, do I understand correctly that the design is 100% already 100% funded, so that now what we should be asking for maybe is construction money? Is that?
That's correct, yes, but of course, I don't want to tell you how to make your request, but I would maybe suggest that upon the completion of the feasibility analysis and a preferred alternative selected, that you advocate for fully funding the construction, whatever that construction cost estimate ends up being, in conjunction with the federal grant opportunities, because again, it's a 50-50 split. So that may not be like right at FY24. It may, even if the appropriation comes in FY24, it may not be until FY25.
There's also opportunities on the state level as well. So I know that we're talking a lot about the federal grant because it makes sense. It's in the name, right? But there are a lot of opportunities and I know that mayor and council have done this for other projects in the past to secure funding through state requests through the state budget process. So we've got a couple of different options, and the fact that you guys have moved this through in such a streamlined and efficient way, we might hit those goals of seeing if we can get some of the funding during the next budget.
Sorry, farmers. I'll also say that those opportunities are not independent of each other. So if we were to obtain additional funding from other sources, that could go towards our 50% share if we were successful in the federal grant.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say. And thank you.
So with that in mind, we know about the bridge, but I guess I wanted to give opportunity for our community members to put other ideas on the table, is because we have, the city wants this by in the next 10 days, our requests. So apart from the pedestrian crossing, are there other things that we should be thinking about? I will say we've reached out to the ballet company that use the Rockville Civic Ballet. That uses the Rockcrest facility, and they've been outgrowing that facility and have asked for some other space in the city, particularly possibly at King Farm in the barns there. So we'll try to find out a little bit more about what their long-term designs are for the company, and whether or not they include that Rockcrest facility there, the small building. We want to see it utilized. We want, and so, if there is opportunities there to repurpose that, I think, that might be something we want to ask for some study of as well. If the ballet company is relocating, but that may be a longer term thing. But are there other things that people had in mind? This isn't the last bite of the apple, of course, but this is a sort of a preliminary ask that the city does pretty early on. Yeah, go ahead, Lou.
How about welcoming signage when you get to Twinbrook, where other communities have it? No one knows that you driving into Twinbrook was our sign over by the shopping center was destroyed. Other neighborhoods we see all the time, entering West End, entering East Rockville. Welcome to Shady, to the Farms, whatever.
This is something that the signage, the wayfinding, the branding, the city's had some discussions on this within the last year, and I don't know where that stands, but we don't have to be very specific with these asks here in terms of dollar amounts or anything like that. That's just to put it out there. I think that
I was a project manager for the wayfinding for the city, and we have completed that study. However, the implementation of that wayfinding is now pending for completion of a new branding study for the city to be done, and see how that wayfinding can coexist with the new branding that the city wants to look at. So I think that effort of branding is something that maybe your community should get behind and support and be active in it.
Vincent, it also looks like Jennifer Wood has her hand up.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I would love to put in a request if we could look at some locations to put in some doggy disposal bags around the parks, especially on the bike path, like behind my house, at the ballet center, over the bridges. There's nothing like that.
Was it, Jen?
They're dog bag like dispensers. They're like the little I just want to poop bag dispensers. I will co-sign this request in addition to getting our trash can back so that those of us that do have bags have some place that we can throw them away.
Yeah, that's so this we can ask about this. This is probably, we'll probably be told this isn't a capital budget request necessarily, but that doesn't really matter so much. The important thing is to make the ask, and then they can figure out where to fit it. But I gotcha. Bags.
Thank you.
It looks like we have another idea from the chat, which is curbside composting. And I know that that's something that the city's Environment Commission has discussed, but perhaps we should look at that as well.
Is that from Allison?
That is from Allison, from our Twinbrooker of the Year past recipient, Chuck Woolery. It would be perhaps renaming a section of our park to Pawpaw Park. If you're unfamiliar with the pawpaw tree, the Rockville Weed Warriors and the folks that really know native trees and plants, they have found over 200 pawpaw trees that we have nearby, and some are now bearing fruits, almost ripe. So that would be kind of an interesting one. I have a pawpaw in my front yard, but I did not take it from the park, just so that Mr. Woolery knows I'm not stealing things. But but I like that idea. And it looks like Sarah Salazar is also in support of the doggy disposal stations and trash bins along the bike path. And our own Mike Stein would like a city-sponsored Pawpaw Festival each September. I will take executive board privilege and say that would be amazing. But yeah, I'll open this. I'll hand it over to Allison about the curbside composting, because this is a really interesting opportunity for sure.
Well, so I guess, Vincent, you saw the email response from the city, which was they looked at, there is a small business in Rockville called Compost Crew. And so they're already doing this. And I'm actually going to go with them and just pay them. I wanted the city to do a pilot in Twinbrook where the city would pay for it, because like the city of Somerset pays for their whole city, Chevy Chase pays. Their response was they didn't think it was cost effective, and they were going to have a central drop-off place as a way of gauging who wanted to do it. My answer was, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting compost scraps in my car to bring. I mean, like if I wanted to do that, I could bring it to the Bethesda market every Sunday, because they also do that. So I disagree with the city's reasoning on this. But, you know, I mean, a lot of cities are doing this. I think they could make some kind of connection with our trash trucks with some, I mean, I don't know all the whatever, but like, especially because we have a lot of people who are working many jobs, people don't have time to deal with this. I mean, I really think it's a convenience. And if we want to, you know, keep stuff out of the landfill, then this is a service they should provide. But that's just my take.
And I know we're noting that, Allison, I've been interested, and I've actually looked up Compost Crew as well. And I know there's been a couple other people within the city, other residents that have noted this as well. So I can circle back in an email with you, because maybe what we do is we lead by example and we create our own group, and then we can help educate others.
Me, if we get like 11 people in the neighborhood, and there are already some people, then the price drops. If we get 20, the price drops again. If we get 40, so really we could just do this on our own and the price would drop.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll email you.
Thank you for reaching out, Allison, and getting that response. Anything, let me check the chat again. Anything else? We'll get some, maybe a pawpaw cookbook or something. I don't know. All right, so these are.
Hi, I'm sorry. I had a question.
Yeah, who's that?
Yeah, hi. This is Ruth Calistrate.
Oh, Ruth.
Hi. I was just talking to someone today. They're in a different neighborhood, but So you know how a lot of our streets are narrow because people park on the street, and just wondering about like emergency vehicles and how they can, I don't know if this is a topic for this topic right now, but how emergency vehicles like fire trucks could get by some of these narrow streets. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues at work, and she has that problem. And there was a fire in her neighborhood the other day, and she said the fire trucks couldn't get through because they're too wide to fit down these narrow streets when the cars park on both sides. So it's wondering if there's any like feedback or any if that's ever been a topic that's brought up.
Anybody from the city here going on?
I was going to say it's come up at RPAC for sure. I don't know if anybody else at the city has looked at it, but the Pedestrian Advocacy Committee has looked at it because it's very much in line with, you know, the way that we look at roads and the complete streets, the idea of a complete streets model and what that's going to look like. And part of that is accessibility for emergency vehicles, as well as, you know, a variety of issues. But I'm going to defer to Jim Woods again because I need to stop talking. So
I didn't want to interject myself, and I know this is a discussion about CIP projects or your budget requests, but to answer your question about the accessibility of public streets for emergency vehicles, Marissa, you're exactly right. Our design guidelines and our roadway standards are being revised, and in some cases they already have been revised for new developments because we traditionally the applicants ask for and are granted road code waivers to ensure that the streets are safe for pedestrians, that the speeds are manageable, that there's adequate parking, but yet that the road is wide enough to accommodate emergency vehicles. So all of those components are developed into our roadway standards, and roadway standards have changed over the years where, you know, you look in some neighborhoods, the roads are very, very wide. There's parking on both sides of the street, and yet still we have speed issues. And we're doing other things to, you know, road diets, narrowing at intersections, you know, other things to manage speed. Our new roadway standards, especially in residential neighborhoods, are really narrowing the road, not widening the road. And although we are still ensuring that there is emergency access by either limiting parking on one side of the street or various other things, we're ensuring that our standards are modern to address both pedestrian safety and accessibility.
I will say I've seen Santa Claus struggle to get down my turnaround rather than go down my street in that week before Christmas, and maybe they would have done it if they had to, but for Santa Claus on the fire truck, it was, we'll just go around the other side. So yeah, I've seen how that might be an issue.
Sure, we certainly are struggling with you know, existing infrastructure or existing roads is much harder to change later. But
Right, and you know, and you know, the old sections of the neighborhood that were built before cars were so prevalent.
Right, and the cars have just gotten bigger.
The cars have gotten bigger and proliferated. Very good. All right, so I think we have some things there that we can take back. Some in the realm of capital planning or capital improvements. Others are worthy and they may come out of a different pot, but we'll figure that out. I guess what I would suggest doing now is, I know we have some before we Jake, I had you on next for the treasure report. I know we're getting a little late here, and I thought maybe I would just open up the floor to anyone who came with other thoughts or ideas. Maybe Jake, we can put a report out on the website or something like that, unless you have a quick 2-minute thing here.
Yeah, just one exciting update. Everything else is pretty consistent and the same, but did you want to mention the grant that we were awarded and the $1,000 check we received?
Yes, that's that is notable. We applied for and finally received a $1,000 grant for basically for community building activities, and now we're gonna have some fun spending it. Marissa, I don't know, you want to say a word about that, or?
Yeah, I can just touch on it really briefly as the grant writer or the writer of the application. We were really thinking in the post-COVID world, although now, like Alicia says, now we're clearly going to do it for a pop-up festival, and it's going to be the Twinbrook Pop-Up Festival. I'm so psyched. And that actually is a great idea. You know, in the COVID world, I think we got really disconnected, and I say this as we're all on Zoom, but we can still find ways to come together as community and ways to we can build community and welcome new people and, you know, expand the individuals that are connected to this kind of information that we share. So we got the grant for a variety of outreach. So we were looking at some in-person outdoor events because we kind of don't know what the fall will bring. Unfortunately, with COVID, we were looking at a couple mailings, like actual postal mailings. If anybody knows, those are really expensive. But if we do one, maybe two, we might be able to hit more people. And so we are always open to new ideas. Kind of like I put in there, like if anyone's got a future topic for a meeting, definitely, you know, share it, email it, your ideas, your thoughts. Although, like I said, I think the Pop-Up Festival may be leading the way. And maybe we could even get someone from Pawpaw, West Virginia to come to our Pawpaw Festival. It would just be absolutely incredible. But the most ideas, you know, that we can have to kind of brainstorm it and work through, I think the better. And yeah, thank you to Jake, but honestly, it's the entire TCA board that really came together to think about what would be the best use for a grant from the city. And we really felt strongly that it was about community connection and really getting to know our neighbors and our friends and our other residents.
Thank you. June, did you want to tell us about your you reached out to me recently with an idea. Why don't you tell me about that?
Okay, hi everybody. My name is June Nicholas, and earlier this summer, I think back in June, another Twinbrook resident and we both live on Bradley Avenue, organized a sort of a community yard sale, and we were able to get about 20 other households to join in with us. And it was all word of mouth, and the other person, her name's Nick Truska, she and I, you know, we would put out signs, we knocked on doors, things like that, and we're able to get about 20 households to join in. And it was a good day. She generated a map that included a lot of the locations. We advertised on Facebook yard sale, online yard sale sites, and everything like that. And so we've received requests about doing another one, and we would like to see about either doing this as an annual thing. We'd like to see if Twinbrook Community Association is interested in helping to advertise it. I've been told that there haven't been any kind of community yard sales on an annual basis like this before. So this is something that we were wondering about, whether this could be something that could be done in the future. And our initial thought was to maybe do one this fall. But we want to reach out to you all and ask, you know, what you think of the idea, how you might be able to help support this idea. really, we'd love to hear anything that you have to say, any advice you have to offer, any suggestions. And then
Yes.
anything that we can do to help.
Yeah, no, I think we would, those are definitely the kind of ideas that we're gonna want to run with and certainly support however we can. So let's talk soon. How about that?
Okay.
9 o'clock and getting, 2 hours is about enough. Anybody should have to sit in a Zoom sessions, but I did want to make sure you got that out there because I know it's the kind of thing that we're about, the supporting community, building community, the linkages, never more important than after the last couple of years, right? So, anything else that we should put out there? I'm gonna check the chat here again. Thank you, Chris Meyers again, Jim Woods, Jim Wasilak. It was great having you all here tonight with us, and we'll see you again, I'm sure, soon. Lou, did you have something else? Like you're getting ready to say something now? Okay. All right. Well, let's leave it there. We're gonna meet again in October. I think it was that 18th or 19th. Let me see before I get the wrong date. 18th, October 18th. We'll have we actually will have, was a year ago in October that we had our last briefing from the Saul people on the status of their project. So they've committed to coming to that meeting. So and giving us an overview. Mike.
Oh, just a quick pitch. Before the October meeting, we're going to restart the monthly walk and talks in September. I know there's a few regulars on here. We're targeting Saturday, September 17th. So look out for that email coming out soon, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, and I forgot to acknowledge Far Mars too. Thank you for coming and being with us tonight. All right, let's leave it there, everybody, and we have lots of ideas. I'm glad we were recording this because I didn't get them all myself. So hopefully between the rest of the board members, we all took some notes. So great meeting. Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, Vincent. Take care.
Thank you.